Good morning, readers. Today we are going to work on our backup and reread strategy. That means if it doesn't make sense, you back up and you reread. We'll also be doing some cross-checking, seeing if it looks right, it sounds right, and it makes sense. We might be tuning into some interesting words to add to our word catcher. And we are going to use our monitor and fix-up strategy. That means if it's not making sense, we are going to stop and try to do something to fix it up. We might back up and reread, we might read it slower, or we might even skip ahead and reread a little bit to see if it makes more sense. Hello readers, today we are going to work with the fiction story Keb Needs a Home. It's written by Simone and illustrated by Mr. Terry. Here's our title page, Keb Needs a Home. Looking at this guy right here, he looks like a lobster or a crab out on the beach. The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. That's what he is, a hermit crab. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. Oh, did you hear that word, second graders? They bask in the warm sun. I'm going to tune into that word because it's a very interesting way of saying that they lay out in the sun. They bask in the sun. Could you say that word? Bask. Nice. Let's go back and reread. The life of a hermit crab isn't so bad. They live near the seashore and they bask in the warm sun. They bathe in the salty sea and they play in the surf. The views are great too. Sunrises and sunsets can be pretty this is a really big word. They can be pretty, special? Does it look right? Special? Well, it starts with this S-P-E, but I know special ends with an L, not an A-R, not an R sound. So it doesn't look right. Even though it sounds right, let's see, sunrises and sunsets can be pretty special. It makes sense, but it doesn't look right. So, let me see. Spectacular. Spectacular. Does that look right? Spectacular. Yep. Does it sound right to my ears? Spectacular. That's a word I've heard before. Does it make sense? Sunrises and sunsets can be pretty spectacular. Yes, it does. Okay, I'm going to reread the page. The views are great too. Sunrises and sunsets can be pretty spectacular, and you can't beat the night sky with all its twinkling stars. But for one hermit crab, life was not so great. You see, Keb was a hermit crab of spectacular proportions. Proportions. Does that look right? Proportions. T-I-O-N says shun. Yep, it looks right. Does it sound right to my ear? Proportions. And does it make sense? Keb was a hermit crab of spectacular proportions. You know what? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the author is meaning here. Let me see if I can back up and reread and see if it will help. But for one hermit crab, life was not so great. You see, Keb was a hermit crab of spectacular proportions. Backing up didn't help me. I know it's not making sense to me, and I'm monitoring to make sure it makes sense, and I'm going to stop when it doesn't. I'm trying to figure it out, but backing up and rereading isn't really helping me. Maybe if I read the next page, it will help me understand what spectacular proportions means. Let's read ahead a little bit. You might think that being the biggest crab on the seashore had its advantages. However, for Keb, the advantages were few and far between. You might think that being the biggest crab on the seashore had its He's the biggest crab on the seashore. He's really big. Let me go back. But for one hermit crab, life was not so great. You see, Keb was a hermit crab of spectacular proportions, of great proportions, meaning he was a really big hermit crab. That's what that means. It makes sense now. You might think that being the biggest crab on the seashore had its advantages. However, for Keb, the advantages were few and far between. Now I'm getting it. He has some problems because he's of really big size. I wonder what the disadvantages are. We will finish reading about Keb later, but I want to make sure that you have practice time to read to self. So maybe you will use some of these strategies that we've been talking about. Remember to stay put and start quickly. Happy reading!